21st century literacy. What does 21st century literacy look like? Well, it's seeing that literacy involves text, and text is everywhere. Text combines multiple modes to portray information. This is called multimodality and has 5 modes to create meaning. But what is 21st century literacy to students? It's not just understanding what emoji to replace with grammar and understanding how many exclamation points should go on a message, but it is also the ability to confidently identify, communicate, and compose meaning from multimodal digital and live text. For someone to be literate in the 21st century would require the person to understand that multiple modes combine in order for meaning to be effectively communicated. To now look at 2 different definitions of literacy, one coming from dictionary.com and the other from UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Definition 1 from dictionary.com describes literacy as the ability to read and write, whereas the UNESCO definition 2, describes literacy as the ability to identify, interpret, create, communicate, and compute using printed and written materials associating with varied contexts. Now to apply these 2 definitions of literacy to a scenario. Let's say we're watching the news and watching the weather forecast. Under definition 1, literacy would allow me to understand the different towns and cities involved, as well as the 2 different colored texts being highs and lows of temperature. Whereas using definition 2, I would now be able to recognize that the symbol at the end represents everything I need to know about the text that precedes it. The biggest difference between the 2 definitions is limitations. Definition 1 relies on literacy being a form of text, whilst definition 2 sees literacy as multimodal, understanding that meaning comes from multiple modes correlating simultaneously rather than strictly using one mode at a time. This brings us to the 5 modes of multimodality. The first mode is linguistic. This is written and audio. Example of this can be grocery lists, an essay, both reading and writing, or even watching the news. The second mode is visual. This is images, both fixed or in motion. Examples include instructional photos on processes like washing your hands, or images in textbooks to help deepen understanding on the topic. Thirdly comes audio. This is sound and music. Examples can be sound to use to be drawn attention, such as when a narrator heightens his voice to really get into a novel, or listening to a sports game or event on the radio station and hearing the commentators talk about what's going on in such expression. Fourth is gestural. Movement, expression, and gestural. Examples being behavioral and social cues, such as reporters reporting on global affairs. Are they depicting happiness, unity? What is the hidden agenda? Sign language is also an effective direct mode of meaning making, as it is a direct link to gestural movement expression. Lastly is spatial. This is directional position, physical arrangement, and proximity, such as a menu. Is it all squished together and confusing, or is it spread out, clean, neat, and tidy? How to navigate a brochure, or even the proximity of subjects in a photo or video. Lastly, there are 2 types of multimodal text, live and digital. Live multimodal text combine various modes. This looks like oral storytelling, dance and performances, and even posters. Digital multimodal text use hyperlinks, translations, maps, recipes, QR codes, etc., such as the next link we are going to explore. I highly implore you to check out this link, as this website incorporates many multimodal aspects and modes, if not all of them. You will find it constructive and a great tool to help getting your students involved in thinking about different aspects of literacy. Students in the 21st century, majority of the time, are already quite multimodally literate. Our job as teachers is to help guide them in a world where a quick Google search requires and provides over 1 million results. How do the students constructively find knowledge? That's our job.